Hey, Chris, how you doing?
Michael, good morning. I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Are you still enjoying out wherever in the mystery place you are?
No, I'm not. As a matter of fact, I'm back at the office.
Well, I'm not, so I'm out this time.
Okay.
So welcome back. As you know, we're kind of continuing our story or our kind of series about DUIs and DWIs, the difference. We went over all of that. We went over what happens when you get pulled over. But now we're going to talk about one of the things that I think a lot of people are confused and want to know more about is breathalyzers. And what is it? When do you get to say no? Do you have to say yes? Do you have to do it? Should you do it? Tell us how. Well, first, kind of tell us when the officer might bring up a breathalyzer.
Sure, Michael. Typically, and we've gone through it in past sessions, episodes of this series, that the officer has pulled someone over. It's on the shoulder or the side of a road somewhere. The officer has had the person exit the vehicle after putting the vehicle in park, and the officer has walked the person through some field sobriety tests, which people commonly refer to as finger to the nose test, um, counting backwards from a specified number, or doing the alphabet starting with a number other than A, ending with a letter other than Z. But the test that I want to talk about today is the breathalyzer test. And the breathalyzer test, for purposes of this discussion, is the machine that the person has now been brought to the police barracks. The person has already been placed under arrest, and the person is now back at the police barracks and is being asked to submit to the test, to blow into the machine that's in the barracks. And it's not to be confused with the small handheld device that many officers typically have either on their person or in their vehicle, and that they have you blow into out in the street.
So, yeah, let's go one by one there. Let's first talk about the blow into the street one. Is that also called a breathalyzer?
It has various names, but it's generically a breathalyzer machine. It's a small computer-held, battery-operated device that the person blows into, and many of these devices just read a plus or a minus. They don't give a numerical readout, but they detect the odor of an alcoholic beverage in that breath sample that you've just blown into that little handheld machine.
So what does that plus or minus mean?
The plus means it's not a good plus. The plus means that there's been alcohol detected in the breath sample.
Any remnants of alcohol?
It can be they typically have a plus or minus cutoff, but very often those machines will read any sample
wow.
of breath alcohol.
So even if I'm out to dinner and get like chicken marsala but get a water, is it going to pick up like a sauce like that?
No, not unless you're drinking the sauce, so to speak. But the device that I want to talk about today, because people consistently always say to me, if I get stopped, do I take the test? And what I've learned over many years of doing this is that the test that they're referring to is the test back in the police barracks, in the state trooper barracks, that machine that is connected to a hardwire electrical circuit. And it's a computer. It's a larger version of the machine that people are asked to blow into out in the street. The machine.
So sorry, not to cut you off there. I just want to make sure, just so everyone that's watching is following. So when you're talking about the breathalyzer, there's two. So there's one out in the street. Now, should we, if you get pulled over, do you have a choice to blow into that one?
You always have a choice, but with the choice comes consequences. And the consequences are that you can be charged with refusing to blow into that little device out in the street, or more so, and more draconian in the consequences, is the refusal to blow into the machine that's at the barracks
Back
that
at
you
the
get
barracks.
brought to. And that's the test people consistently say to me, if I get stopped, should I take the test? If I get pulled over and arrested, should I take the test? It's not a simple yes or no answer. And I say that because if it's a run-of-the-mill first offense, and the person is faced with that decision to make, it depends on what county you are in the state of New York. Some county prosecutors have their own rules that they have adopted for purposes of DWIs in their offices. And those rules include the rule where if the person refuses to blow into the breath test machine at the police barracks, that the district attorney will not plea bargain that case.
Why is that?
Will hold the person as charged to a misdemeanor DWI, and the person can either go to trial because they have refused to blow into the machine, or they can plead guilty to a misdemeanor DWI if they've never been arrested before. And if they've never been arrested before, that's a big consequence of a decision that you make very often in the cold dark of the night when you're by yourself and you don't have anybody to reach out to ask. I've been arrested in X, Y, or Z municipality by the state police or the sheriff or whoever the arresting agency is. Do I take the test? And in order to answer that question with some authority, you got to know if the person has been in an accident. Has the person been arrested before? If so, has the person had a conviction for a DWI related offense within the last 10 years or 5 years? You got to make those decisions because depending on the answers, my information I'm going to give the person is going to change.
Okay, so I cut you off before. So you were saying that this bigger machine is what the bigger issue is, to blow or not blow. So is this one a plus or minus 2, or is this one much more specific?
It's much more specific. It reads it off in a numerical quantity, the presence of alcohol in the breath sample that the machine has just taken from you.
Okay, and is it 100% accurate all the time?
I don't believe so. I've seen cases where it is not accurate, or it is conflicting with the physical proof, such as a video of the motorist that had been taken by that same arresting police agency. And the video of the motorist shows someone who certainly doesn't seem impaired and certainly doesn't seem intoxicated.
So it's possible that even if you do blow and it's high, that could be wrong, and you might be able to fight that at trial.
Well, you've got to start well in advance of trial. You're entitled to certain disclosure and discovery from the prosecuting agency, and when you get that, you've really got to look through it. And one of the things that you want to do is you want to look and see, let's say, if there's maintenance records for this breath testing machine. You want to get the maintenance records, and you want to get somebody who is an expert in looking at these same records and determining whether there's a problem that's of long standing with this particular machine that your client provided a breath sample to. If so, it can help you sow some reasonable doubt into your defense of your client in your case by saying to the jury, in essence, if you get to that point, that here's a machine with a bad maintenance history, and you've been able to see that we brought in an expert who testified that he or she was very familiar with this type of machine and very familiar with the malfunction that happens with alarming regularity with this particular name and brand of machine. And based on that, and based on the fact that there's been a video that's been shown to you of the defendant, who's my client, I submit to you that reasonable doubt's been established as to whether this individual was driving while intoxicated.
Okay, so I know you just explained that kind of it really depends on the situation in terms of whether blow or not blow. And I guess at the end of the day, though, is there for a generic kind of answer that you can kind of give somebody who's watching this right now, that if they find themselves pulled over and they're offered that breathalyzer, what should they do?
Before you put yourself in that situation or find yourself in that situation, have a phone number for somebody who you can call and ask that same question. I'm in X, Y, or Z municipality in such and such a county in the state of New York. I've been involved in an accident. Somebody appears to have been seriously injured. I have been out. And one of the things that I do when I talk to somebody who's in those situations is I don't let them provide me with information, because in providing it to me via phone, they may also be providing it to law enforcement, who are in all likelihood standing right around my client or soon to be client, who's handcuffed to something in a police barracks. So I tell them, don't give me even a Reader's Digest version. Let me ask a pointed question and you give an answer. How many drinks did you have tonight? Just give it to me numerically. Don't tell me what you were drinking. I'll ask you those questions. And that's the best way to get information from somebody who's in a very publicly exposed situation and has a big decision to make. And I tell them, if you've been in an accident and somebody's been seriously injured, you can't take a test under those circumstances, because to do so could potentially impair your ability to defend yourself in a court of law, where you invariably are going to end up because you're in police custody now. The next step after that is a court somewhere.
So to kind of wrap it up, probably the best advice is, you said, to kind of have a number handy. Do you have a number you recommend?
People can call me. People do call me all the time with questions like that, and at late hours.
What's that number?
That number is 914-400-8379.
Great. And we'll have a link to that a little later below. So if people are watching, they can give you a call. And if they find themselves in that position, they can always give you a call. All right. Thanks a lot, Chris. I appreciate your time, and we'll continue the series next week.
Thank you, Michael. Good to see you.
You too. Bye-bye.